This is SpinCheck Live with Leonardo Puglisi.
To SpinCheck Live here on 6 News right now. Of course, the Victorian election is now less than a month to go. I should say we are in the Victorian election month. The state will head to the polls on November 26th. Of course, pre-polling begins a bit earlier than that. Now, we have got a commitment to speak to at least one person from every single party here at 6 News. We have two guests on for you tonight. We have Rebecca Thistleton, who is Labor's candidate for the Greens held seat of Melbourne, I should state, which is part of the federal Melbourne electorate. And we also have the Greens candidate for the Northeast Metro region in the Upper House, Ave. Well, Ave, viewers might know you've got a pretty similar surname to mine. What is your surname then?
That's right, quite similar, except I say mine differently. I don't say the G, it's pugliese.
Well, look, technically I'm supposed to say puglisi, but, we've anglicised it, but, that happens. Anyway, thank you both for joining us tonight. Ava, I may as well start with you here. Obviously the Greens, were hit pretty hard in the Upper House in 2018, going from 5 to 1 seats. You're obviously trying to get Northeast Metro into Greens' hands now. Why put up your hand to run in the first place?
Well, because I believe in the policy platform and the values of the Greens. The community that I'm standing for is seeking action on the climate crisis, action on housing unaffordability, and they want to see more integrity in their government, a government that they can trust. And we saw from the federal election that more and more people are looking for that in their government. We saw record numbers voting Green. And so we're very excited to see that translate to the state level.
Rebecca, what about you? Obviously, we hear often in the media, and just not necessarily with the Victorian election on its own, but people are turning away from the major parties. But of course, again, turning to those polls, it seems like Labor is headed for pretty strong support this election, even after 8 years in government. So why make the decision to run yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Leo. Look, I think that I really admire the work that the Andrews Labor government has done over the last 8 years, and the strong leadership that has been shown throughout the pandemic. And it's an extraordinary list of achievements and things that this government has delivered over the last 8 years. And so, for me, I just want to make sure that when big decisions are made, that the inner city is really a focal point in the government's work. And so for me, it was wanting to make sure that that these inner suburbs, such as where I live here in Kensington, North Melbourne, West Melbourne, the city, Parkville, Carlton, Docklands, East Melbourne. I just want to make sure that we've got a really strong voice for where all of the decisions are being made.
Of course, the Melbourne MP right now, and there's actually at a federal level too, is Greens. So you are trying to unseat a Greens MP there. Do you think that makes it a bit easier or harder for you, given, of course, traditionally most races just seem to be Labor versus Liberal or Nationals?
It makes it different, that's for sure. This is a really politically engaged electorate, and it was exceptionally close between Labor and the Greens last time. And there has been quite an interesting redistribution too. But having a look at the numbers and overlaying, what's happened in the federal election as well as the state election too, there's really only about 600 to 700 votes in this. So it is going to be a very close contest.
And Ave, look, the Upper House, obviously, we talk about it all the time here on 6 News. It's the House of Review, and it's really important, even if it's not the place where government is formed. How crucial do you think the Upper House is in keeping governments, be that Labor or, as it could be potentially after the election, although seems unlikely, coalition, keeping them in check?
Well, it's critical. It's essential to make sure that we have proper scrutiny on legislation and that it all passes above board when making its way out into the community and being enacted. We saw even during the COVID period how even just having one Upper House Greens MP in Samantha Ratnam, how critical it came in passing essential health legislation that directly impacted communities. We saw even with that one person in that space how much of a difference it made in ensuring that we had progressive policy pass. And so with more Greens representatives in the Upper House, we hope to continue in that vein.
There are people out there, though, for whatever reason, they do consider, and Rebecca, I'll ask you this in a sec, but Ave, I'll go to you first, who do think Labor and the Greens are, pretty similar on some issues. Do you agree with that? And what do you think the key difference is, Ave, between your party and Labor?
Well, while on some fronts we do see pledges that in some way speak to the climate crisis or the issues that our communities are facing, they do not go anywhere near far enough for what we actually require to tackle these crises affecting our communities now. We need to end new coal and gas projects in this state. We need to stop logging native forests. Drilling for gas or exploration for gas drilling near the 12 Apostles are things that are not in the community's interest. And from what we saw in the federal result, we see that people want action on climate. They don't just want lip service.
Rebecca, what would you say to that? Why do you think a Greens vote in the seat of Melbourne should turn towards Labor, even though we know, as I said before, federally, Adam Band, being the federal member for Melbourne, has enjoyed some pretty decent success, and I think he got about, or maybe just about, or maybe just over 50% of first preference votes alone at the May election.
Yeah, sure. Look, there's a couple of really good points there that I'd like to touch on. And I think that, even though Adam Band does have a very strong name recognition here, and, the seat of Melbourne federally, it wasn't a seat that was particularly targeted by Labor, but our Labor candidate here, Keir Patterson, did run an exceptional campaign and did manage to knock a few points off Band's percentage. In terms of what some of the issues mean for Melbourne voters, I think that when I go door to door talking to people, people do raise logging, and they are really pleased to hear that we are going to be phasing out all native timber logging by 2030, and do also appreciate the fact that we do also have a workforce to look after there as well. And I think that is also a key difference between the Greens and Labor, is that we are actually the party of government, and we run to be a part of the government as well, and to make sure that when we are taking action on climate change, as we are when it comes to bringing back the State Electricity Commission, making sure that we phase out coal as well, and also having the most ambitious decarbonisation targets in Australia as well. They're also doing that with our workforce in mind too, and doing it based on targets that can actually be delivered, knowing that we'll have to answer for them as well. So they do need to be attainable, and something that we will be facing up to at future elections too. So that really is a really clear point of difference between the two parties.
Ave, you're looking like you want to respond there.
I just have to. It's sure attainable targets, but they also have to actually address the crises we're facing. If they don't go far enough on climate, we cook. That's the reality. And in terms of addressing the transfer of workers from these industries that are directly impacted those communities, the Greens also advocate on this front. We need to see direct commitment now that we are exiting these problematic industries, and that we are immediately offering certainty to those workers that they are going to be able to put food on the table and support themselves.
But I think though that I'm not saying that I disagree with what it is that you're wanting to achieve there, Ave, but we are talking about a massive step down in Victoria's logging by 2024 and being out of new timber harvesting by 2030. And then when it comes to coal, we're going to be out of coal by 2035. And we also have a really ambitious gas transition plan as well. So, I mean, really, we are talking about the difference in a couple of years here.
Sorry, but we are also facing crises where the action is needed now. If anything, it's needed yesterday. It's great to hear that there is some prospect of movement from Labor. Like, I'll be sure that it's better than what we're seeing from a lot of other parties going into this election. But the reality is we need immediate action, and that is what the community wants. We saw that at the federal level. People are shifting their vote green because they want to see this crisis addressed now.
But that's what I'm saying though, is that I'm not talking about things that we would like to do. We are actually working to phase out logging. That process is already underway. And when it comes to decarbonisation as well, I mean, there's a plan in place to have solar panels on more than 700,000 roofs. It's already on more than 200,000 roofs across Victoria as well. We're training up more sparkies to be able to deliver those sorts of projects. We understand the urgency. That's why the work's already happening.
But with respect, the work that is happening, like, it's great to hear that there are some kind of commitments being made, but it comes off as spin. It comes off as spin. The community does not take that on board. We need to see that it's immediate action. We need to see end dates that are effectively for no new coal and gas projects starting now. It's not something into the future that hopefully will be met. We need the immediate certainty. That is the crisis we are facing. It wouldn't be called a crisis if it was not an immediate need.
Can I just jump in there? Can I just jump in there with respect to both of you? I understand the points you're both making there, but also I don't want to make it into a back and forth. Rebecca, I just want to ask something else, and Ave, I'll get to you in a second again. And by the way, we do appreciate you sharing your views, and we also encourage our viewers do it live chat right now. But at the same time, Rebecca, you mentioned Greens can't form government, which theoretically they can, and theoretically animal justice can, but obviously it's unrealistic, and I don't think Samantha Ratnam thinks they can form a majority government either. But do you acknowledge, though, that Labor and the Greens can seriously work together? I mean, ACT, for example, there's a coalition government. Federally, they've worked together, and of course, we only heard today that Labor's considering preferencing the Greens in some areas. Do you acknowledge there is a partnership there that could be beneficial for both of you? Given, I think both of you would rather work together than have a coalition government in power, I imagine.
Oh, I think that, when you are part of a government like the Andrews Labor government that's always working to be so progressive and so constructive, there is always that desire to work together. And I think there have been some really great outcomes that have been achieved, particularly between this government and Reason Party over the last couple of years as well. But I guess, too, it's the difference between, Ave calls it spin, I call it the difference. But I find that really hard to grapple with, given that that it is the state Labor government that's actually delivering. You can't call it spin when you can actually see that there are things happening every day that are impacting the lives of thousands of Victorians based on action that is actually happening. And so, it can be a little bit difficult to be trying to work with people where, when you're going out there and talking about having a really positive plan and action that's already happening, only to be told that, well, it's not soon enough, it needs to happen tomorrow. Well, we have plans that are in place to get things done within the next couple of years. Really, really easy to say we need to get it done tomorrow when you don't actually have to be the party that's delivering that.
With respect, we are talking about new coal and gas projects, no new coal and gas projects. That's a decision we can make today. We could have made it in this previous government gone. The reality is, Greens, we advocate to pressure whoever is in government to have the most progressive policy outcome to address the issues that our communities are facing already. We've just seen the floods. We've seen recent fire seasons. It's only going to continue. We need immediate action.
But with the state government's commitments around, particularly around coal, where is the new coal in Victoria that you're campaigning so heavily against, given that we've got a plan in place to be out of that by 2035?
With respect, it's all new coal and gas projects, irrespective of where they are. We look at sites like the 12 Apostles, where there's exploration for gas drilling being sought by the current Labor government. It is integral that we send to the community that message that that is not what we're going to see in the next term of government. And I hope, in what the reality is, it's likely to be a Labor government going into the next term, that we don't see those paths of policy that continue the destruction of our climate, the destruction of our landscape. It's important that we send the community the message that we are immediately delivering action for progressive outcomes on the climate crisis, in addition to the other policies we're advocating on housing, on integrity.
So are there any particular new coal and gas projects that the Greens are actively calling not to go ahead? I mean, I get what you're saying about the exploration licence in the western part of the state, but I mean, given that we've made a really strong commitment to be out of coal by 2035, when you say no new coal, which new coal are you talking about?
So with respect, if you're looking for key points of advocacy within the No New Coal and Gas pledge, I would say the best thing is to look at the Vic Greens website on that regard. I'm not here to give you expert analysis on every detail. I'm not a scientist when it comes to climate. We offer full detail publicly on our website. And so I'd say, with respect to viewers, if you're looking to see the projects that we are opposing, that is a space I would send you to look at that.
Okay, I mean, I think too, for me, that really is a very key difference between Labor and the Greens, you're talking about advocacy, I'm talking about action, and I'm talking about the fact that we are getting rid of coal by 2035.
With respect, if it weren't for Greens, the progressive energy being applied to Labor, I don't think we'd be seeing anywhere near the commitments we're seeing in this election campaign. And I do genuinely welcome any party approaching this election that is looking to have progressive policy towards the issues that are facing our communities. But you cannot continue with this mindset of we are a government party, a majority party, because it undermines the values of what our democracy is. It is having a broad suite of voices at the table, achieving progressive outcomes for our communities.
Can I just jump in again, because I don't want to make it a back and forth on this. Again, people are welcome to go to the Vic Greens website, and also encourage, again, have your thoughts in the live chat right now. What do you think about all this? But again, we appreciate you both sharing your views on this, and it is a topic we have been covering heavily. I want to ask you something here right now, and it's something we actually saw in the paper today, Herald Sun reporting there are discussions underway about Labor delivering preferences in the upper house areas, including your own, being Northeast Metro. Is that something you would welcome?
Well, I hope the next government that we see, the next parliament that we see, is a progressive one. And so I'll get to group voting tickets, or I'm sure you might get to it in a later question. While we have that problematic system in place for the upper house, I do hope that progressive, or parties that speak to progressive policy outcomes, can work together to make sure we get the most progressive parliament we can for the next term.
I was going to get into group voting tickets here in just a second. Rebecca, additionally, obviously, lower house, there are no binding preference deals. There's nothing like that we see in the upper house. But of course, recommendations matter. How to vote cards matter. Given you are running in a Greens seat, will you be recommending voters put Greens ahead of Liberals on your how to vote card?
Look, honestly, Leo, that's something that I haven't really decided yet, and it's something that I also have to decide with the party as well. And there's still, even though it's only 23 days until the election, and just over a week until early voting opens, we've still got a little bit of time left before we lock those sorts of things in.
Yeah, it is close. And by the way, for those viewers interested, group voting tickets in that upper house, they will be available on our website once they are out. There has been criticism of your party, though, Rebecca, that regarding group voting tickets, and obviously, again, you are running in the lower house, but your party's been keeping an undemocratic system in place. What do you make of that? 'Cause, again, you're not running, but I'm sure you're well aware of GVT and all that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially around the seat that I'm running in as well, this is a really engaged set of voters here as well that do put a lot of effort in. And I'd just really encourage anyone to really take the time to plan out how you're going to vote, do your research, and be voting below the line.
And look, I'll wrap it up there because it's getting late, and I'm a school kid, so yeah. But I would just add here, just finally, and Ave, you mentioned before, so I'll start with you here. It really does look like Labor's going to win this election, and we're in a situation where polls are saying that the coalition might pick up maybe 3 seats, but they could also potentially lose 3 seats. Effectively, they'd be stuck where they are right now, which is a bit of a weird situation for an opposition that has been in opposition for 8 years. Why do you think the Liberals and the Nationals are in that position right now?
I think we're seeing that occur because the Liberals and the Nationals are lurching further and further to the right. They're not speaking to the progressive values of our communities. And you would have thought, I think, from the federal result that there would have been some soul searching and hopefully some more progressive outcomes within those party spaces, but evidently thus far we have not seen that. In any respect, the next government, we seek to apply pressure to make sure we get the most progressive outcomes for our communities.
And Rebecca, what about you here? Again, you're not going up against a Liberal or National, but either way, it really looks like the coalition's struggling here. What do you make of that, and how confident are you of your own chances and your party's chances?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think, sometimes people might just presume that because I'm Labor that would naturally mean that I don't want there to be a strong opposition. But but it's quite the opposite. We need to have as many strong candidates running as we can, because it's a big part of what engages people and gets them to take an interest in politics. And it means too that people don't, write the lot of us off as well. And so what we really need to be seeing is a lot of really strong candidates, and for people to get a sense that they really need to take the time and have a real think about it, who it is that they're voting for. I don't think that it's ever healthy for there to be any foregone conclusions at all. We do have a Liberal candidate here in Melbourne who started campaigning over the last couple of weeks, and we're seeing more and more candidates put their hand up as we get closer to election day, and I think that can only be a good thing. I think that even though there is such strong support for the Andrews government, I don't think that it's anything that any of my Labor colleagues have taken for granted, and I think too that that's largely because of what has been able to get done and to be achieved over the last 8 years as well. And most of my Labor colleagues, when I speak to them, they just don't feel like the job's done yet. All of them have got a lot of things that they want to do, a lot of things they want to deliver for their communities as well. So after 8 years, after the pandemic as well, everyone's still got a lot of energy and a lot of things that they want to get done.
Just on the last point there, I mean, if you are re-elected, it's 12 years in government. Isn't 8 years that you've already had so far long enough?
I mean, when you have a look at some of the big projects that are underway here, something like Metro Tunnel is a really great example, and that's one that runs right through the heart of this electorate here in Melbourne. So you've got that project, that the Premier announced some years ago, now back in the first term of this government, and since then, all of our tram network has been powered by renewables, and soon, the trains that are on Metro Tunnel will be powered by renewables. This government's now announced 2 new hospitals to be built at the Arden station site along the Metro train line, which will be powered by renewables. And we're also training, the tradies that are building it, and the nurses and the midwives that are going to be working there. So, to achieve these sorts of outcomes, it does take a lot of time. And when you compare, where we were at the start of the Andrews Labor government's first term after 4 years of inertia, why would we stop now?
It's been a really interesting 8 years of the Labor government, and on your earlier point, look, the Liberals, they seem to be struggling. I don't think they're going to see a WA style wipeout, but we'll have to wait and see there. But again, fascinating results. Going to be a fascinating race in both of your seats. Really appreciate you both joining us, and of course, best of luck for the election.
Thanks, Leo.
Thanks, Leo. Big fan of your work. Cheers.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers.
We're going to take a break now, but we'll have more political headlines coming up after the break on SpinCheck Live. Also, would love to know some of your comments here. Benedict says, much better performance by the Labor candidate. She seems very level-headed. Another commenter, I can't pronounce the name of, says, Ave is killing it. And we have Benedict also says it's important the DLP has the balance of power in the Legislative Council after the election. But keep those comments coming in. We'll let our guests go now. But again, thank you very much for tuning in to SpinCheck Live. We will be back after the break with more. You're staying with us here on 6 News. No paywalls, no sign-ins. 6newsau.com is your one-stop place for all the latest breaking news, in-depth stories and exclusive reports. Plus, find out more about us here at 6 News, who our team is and where we came from. That's all available right now. Head to our website, 6newsau.com.
When big news breaks.
It pains me to announce that I have no option but to resign from the office of Premier.
Reimpose stage 3 stay-at-home restrictions effective from midnight tomorrow night.
6 News is there for you.
This was a scene of what some are describing as almost a riot, violent confrontations with police and protesters.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute coverage that's focused on the facts.
I just wrapped up a call with the Trump campaign.
The waters have begun receding in southeast
Queensland. Now, the clean-up begins.
No matter the time,
Welcome to this 6 News major breaking news we have for you.
no matter the place,
Yeah, sorry, I'm at the supermarket right now.
you'll always see it first right here on 6 News. Every week, Leo Puglisi and Ivan Lung discuss the big stories that matter in a joint podcast that brings together the forces of two independent and unbiased news outlets.
Lots of stuff to talk about, Leo, on the other side of the country as usual.
Thank you very much, man. Always great to chat.
Listen to East Plus West. Available now exclusively for Patreon subscribers. Sign up for just $4 a month. Head to patreon.com/6newsau. 6 News, proudly sponsored by Blackmagic Design. Find out more at blackmagicdesign.com.
Welcome back. You're still with SpinCheck Live here on 6 News. Again, leave your thoughts in the comment section right now, the live chat about what you thought about the panel we just had. Really fascinating, and of course we appreciate both of them for coming on, but there's been a lot else happening right now, and we turn our attention to the rest of the nation with rallies and vigils held right across Australia following the death of 15-year-old Perth schoolboy Cassius Turvey. The rallies were held in capital cities including Melbourne and Sydney, and also in other areas like Newcastle. Hundreds of thousands gathering to pay their respects and also rally for justice. Ahead of the rally, Cassius's mother called for calm. A speaker on her behalf in Sydney said this.
I don't want any more violence. I'm the only person who can get justice for my son. Stand alongside me, and I appreciate everyone. But I need to call out for calm. I am angry. Cassie's friends and family are angry. But I don't want any form of violence at any of these rallies in the name of my child.
A 21-year-old man is accused of the alleged attack. And you may have missed it this week. A US Air Force plan to base nuclear-capable B-52 bombers in Darwin and Catherine. But the federal government ministers say it won't make them targets. An ABC Four Corners investigation revealing 6 of these long-range aircraft would be sent to the Tyndall RAAF base near Catherine in the Northern Territory over the next few years. Facilities included a maintenance centre and a parking centre, which will be built as part of the US-funded plan. Projects like that are expected to generate jobs and stoke up the local economy. However, in a time of increased tension, some analysts believe the rotation of B-52s is a deliberate step up to deter China. Several government-owned companies, including Australia Post, the NBN, and Snowy Hydro, have been asked to explain why tens of millions of dollars have been paid in executive salary bonuses. Despite criticism, management maintains that generous bonuses and salaries attract and retain talented staff. According to the AFR, in the past year, 24 public servants and executives at government-owned businesses earned over $1 million. Senior management has been asked to provide reasons why these salaries are needed and appropriate in their industries. And just finally, to our randomly selected political party of the week. And for the second time ever, it's gone to a tie again, meaning it's gone to a public vote. As a result of that public vote, the selected party is the Australian Progressive Party. Now, the APP was formed back in 2014. To quote The Guardian, they went public within days of each other, the Australian Progressive Party and the Australian Progressives. The parties both have superficial similarities and nearly identical names and website colour themes. They both claim a nationwide interest in spread of state and federal seats. They want to appeal to a wide voter base by producing a range of policies on a range of issues rather than being a one-issue party of protest, but both rely on government members and donations to stay afloat. But that's where the similarities end. The parties are deeply divided on policy direction and the personalities at their helm. So that was The Guardian. Now, somewhat confusingly, AustralianProgressives.org.au, which is now a dead link, was the Australian Progressives, and the Progressives.org.au link was the APP. That latter link now directs to the new Australian Progressives website because those two parties merged. This, however, is what that APP website looks like from an archive. Again, the party merged with the Progressives. The APP was never registered, never ran in elections, but had a very similar stance to the Australian Progressive, but yeah, they are now one unified force despite those early reported visions back in 2014. Divisions. You know what I mean. Anyway, that is SpinCheck Live for this Thursday evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you again to our panel from earlier. A reminder, for more headlines, including the latest on the Victorian election, head to our website, sixnewsau.com, where we've got a full A to Z list of candidates, a seat-by-seat guide, and also what you need to know about where Ava's running the Legislative Council. You can also follow us on social media at 6newsau on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. And support our work on Patreon for just $4 a month, patreon.com/6newsau. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.